What's the DJ?
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Friday, March 3rd, 2023. I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to try something special today. Blessed and honored to have two of the young guns in our lanes talking some college baseball. And you know something, for someone like myself, most of you guys know, I live on Cape Cod, Mass. And the number 2 all-time summer baseball league is the Cape Cod Baseball League, where hundreds of guys have come through the ranks, made it to the MLB, made future and Hall of Famers, and I live 10 minutes from 3 of the teams. I eat, sleep, drink, shit Cape Cod Baseball League when I'm not at Fenway Park. But in today's market, your smartphone is, like I say, the Bellagio, where you can bet anything you want, from American Idol to the next president to college baseball, lacrosse, you name it, you can bet it. And I have wanted, and I have searched, and I've looked for people that have the same passion that we do here at East Coast Sports Investors. And so I came across these two young gentlemen who just finished up a show. And I said, you know what? Why not? Let's see if I can somehow, some way pull this one off. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them both onto our stage. They're going to introduce themselves. We're going to find out how they got into these lanes, and they're going to talk about college baseball, the makeup of this year's competition. I know last year the Tennessee Vols was a wagon. I mean, I've never seen anything like the Vols. I mean, it was like Tiger Woods in his prime. It was Tennessee versus the field, and I looked. There's no way any team's going to beat this. Well, they didn't even make it to Nebraska. And this year, there's a team called LSU also in the SEC that everyone's talking about. I don't know if these guys know. I have 2 daughters, one that graduated UConn and one that is at UConn. Shout out to George Springer. They had an amazing run last year. But again, what they lack is the length and pitch, in which for most teams, listen, you can score 10, 12, 13 runs till you're blue in the face, but you need that length and pitching. And I hope these guys can open up some eyes and open up some ears and get everyone caught up to speed and maybe throw a few winners out there. So without further ado, and bear with me here, let's bring them both in here. What is up, Matt and Johnny V TV? What's up, fellas?
What's up, Jeff?
How we doing, man? Thanks for bringing us on. And, you know, real quick, you touched on a sore spot there, man. Tennessee, they were an absolute daddy wagon last year, one of the best teams college baseball's ever seen, and they didn't bring it home. And I was heartbroken. That's my team. I love the Vols, and I had a nice ticket on them. So they get bounced by Notre Dame, and I never knew true heartbreak aside from when the Falcons blew Super Bowl. That's like probably what Matt Harvey felt like after Adriana Lina dumped him for Julian Edelman. I'd be like in One Oak on a Tuesday night randomly. So thank you for talking about that.
What's happening, Matty?
Well, I also liked Tennessee a lot last year, and then they ran into Notre Dame, and the rest is history. But it's a new year. Still got that solid pitching rotation, so we'll see if they can't get to Omaha this time.
So preseason, Matt, it looked like they just flipped the switch. Tennessee is not the team to be chased. LSU was the team to be chased, or one of the teams. Were you also preseason high on this LSU team, or did you have a couple teams outside looking in that you have your eyes on?
Yeah, so I told everyone not to bet LSU right now. I thought at some point you could probably get a better number throughout the season. Maybe they hit a little lull and, they drop a series that they shouldn't have dropped, and you can, get them at a little bit better number. Now that everybody's kind of seen how good Paul Skeens actually is and how solid that lineup is, I don't know if you're going to get a cheaper number on them or LSU or Florida or Wake Forest for that matter. And, you look at a team like Ole Miss last year, who was preseason top 3, top 5 to win it all. But they finished the season, I think, like 35-25. They barely made it into postseason, but then they went on that run, and yet they were still one of the worst teams as far as in the odds makers perspective of long shot to win the World Series. So you actually would have gotten a better number betting Ole Miss at the start of Omaha than you would have preseason. So you find a team like LSU as that heavy of a favorite, you really don't want to lay it with them until you know that this team is going to be there at the end of the day. And injuries, the longevity of the season, I mean, there are so many opportunities and things that can happen that would screw up your bet by betting it right now at such a low number.
Johnny, my producer, Kiefer Bagwell, graduated from Chattanooga, diehard Rebel fan, goes to the football games, goes to the baseball games. He was gifted one of those get out of jail free cards at the start of the tournament. He actually, of course, had a little pizza and beer money from the start of the year on them as well. I'll take it back 2 years ago to that Arkansas team. Again, another wagon that just fell short. So as you were putting together your preseason and where we stand today, anything stand out with you, Johnny, going into the season?
Yeah, so two teams. Well, obviously Tennessee was a team I liked, and I liked the fact that they were second favorite behind LSU. And Matt and I discussed this the last 2 weeks. The pressure's off them a little bit. LSU is the Tennessee of this year, and that's where everybody's eyes are on. Now, there is still an LSU 7-1 out there. I think it was on DraftKings. I don't know if it still stands, but I saw it this morning or last night. So that's something, if you want LSU, I'd probably get it now because it's likely not going to get longer than that. But I think aside from LSU or Tennessee, the teams that I was looking at seriously at their number, Wake Forest 40-1. I was on the week before the Super Bowl, had a great guest. Me and him discussed Wake Forest as a real candidate. And given the price that they had at 40-1, 2 days later, the price was down to 25-1. I was sick over it. And then another team, which I took some money on preseason before I even saw them play, was Mississippi State. They won it all in 2021. They got ransacked with injuries last year. They lost a lot of key guys in the draft. Their big guy, Landon Sims, who barely pitched last year, gone. But the reason why I like Mississippi State, they are a very well-coached team. They have championship pedigree. And I said to myself, at 60-1, despite the fact that 26 of their guys are either freshmen or sophomores, if this team can navigate the early season struggles that they probably would face, I think this is a team that you're going to have to look out for in a bounce back year. And one of the reasons was the freshman phenom, D'Angelo Senchi, switch pitcher, switch hitter. And I thought that was going to be such a weapon. And we've seen in the regional, super regionals in Omaha, the pitching matters. Teams always seem to run out of pitching. And the reason why Arkansas and Ole Miss and even Oklahoma made it as far as they did last year was because they had a lot of talented arms. And I think Mississippi State at 60-1, which is the second best number I've seen it at by a landslide right now, is a bet you have to get involved in before they get crushed.
Maddie, twice in my career, this goes way, way back, a big-time golf course down the road, Willow Bend, would have a Pro-Am. It was the Greg Norman Pro-Am, and a lot of athletes would come down. It was sponsored by Reebok. They'd play around to golf. It was all for charity. Twice I was gifted, was able to caddy for Tim Wakefield. And one of the times that I caddied for him, he actually had to pitch that night up at Fenway. And the reason I'm bringing this up is one of the 2 times that I caddied for him, we had Roger Clemens in our foursome. And let me just tell you, Roger can hit. Both of them can hit the ball a ton. Roger can obviously hit the ball a ton as well there. I follow him. He follows me on Twitter. We had some banter back and forth here and there. If I could ask you, and I'm not saying that they're terrible, but what has happened to the Texas Longhorn program?
I don't know. Outside of Texas has been kind of a pretend team for several years in every sport. I feel like, they had the run with Vince Young in football and with Kevin Durant in basketball. But outside of that, I mean, for as talented as the state of Texas is for their athletes, you've got guys at TCU, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, all in state that seem to put together better overall teams. And for whatever reason, it's the same in baseball. And I think just the talent level that Texas has right now is just not up to par. And you saw it at Globe Life Field 2 weekends ago. They couldn't get anything going. I mean, when you're struggling with Missouri, who's predicted to finish last, you're Texas, come on. It's UT. And it's just, for whatever reason, they just don't have it.
Johnny, I got the DraftKings board up. Same for you, Matt. I'm looking at today's slate. It just has today's game lines and team futures. Maybe we'll close out with the futures. Obviously, weekend sets here. Got a 2:30 game, Stony Brook against UNC. 3 o'clock, Ole Miss, Maryland. 4 o'clock, Wright State, Arkansas. Davidson, Carolina, Coastal Carolina. TCU, Michigan, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to throw it out to you, Johnny, first. Weekend slate. What's catching your eye tonight?
Matt and I, we talked at nauseum on my podcast, Breaking Bet, on Bet Karma, like an hour ago. We're in agreement. It's the Florida Gators who have gotten cracked. So we're on 3 sides that we agree with. By the way, like I told them, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was getting every single number I could have gotten at the open. Early bird gets the worm. Every single play in the Maryland Ole Miss, the Florida Miami game, and the South Carolina Clemson game are all in our favor now. We all got the best of the number. That's what happens. And, it's like anything else. You got to get the best of the number. But unlike a lot of other places in sports, college baseball hangs the weirdest lines, and a lot of the times it's the most mispriced lines. But it's the Gators today, man. It really is. And I think I would bet them up to minus 180. I think Matt would agree with me. The reason I love Florida, and I got them at 135, is because you're not going to get the Gators at this good of a number all year, most likely. Maybe a few other times it's in this vicinity, but they're going against Miami, and the short of it is they're throwing Gage Zeal, who last year had 30 appearances, no starts. They decide he's the Friday guy to replace Carson Palmquist when Carson Ligon was the Saturday guy last year, and they just said, oh, you're going to be the Saturday guy again. Gage Zeal's gotten rocked in his first 2 starts this year against Penn State and Dartmouth. 7 innings, 9 runs, and then he's expected to come out in his first big test against the Florida Gators, and you're going to give me 135, 140? I don't think so. Just the Gators are a daddy wagon right now. They have 117 runs. That's 3rd most in the country. They have at least 8 runs scored in 6 straight games. I don't see why I wouldn't take Florida in this one. And I'll say the same thing I said yesterday. I hope Florida doesn't beat them too bad today, because I want to bet them again tomorrow, where Hurston Waldrep, who might be the number 2 pitcher off the board this summer, Southern Miss transfer. I want to bet him again.
Maddie, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, outside of Yo-Yo Morales, I don't think Miami's going to be able to contend with Florida's offense. Florida is too good, and I think they're still underpriced as far as an odds maker standpoint. Miami, they may win one of these games in this series, but I think overall you've got to say Florida is the much better team. And like Johnny was touching on, if you look at like a series, or not a series price, but a price on what it means to really be a big dog in college baseball, you don't really get a minus 5, 6, 700 in major league, but you will out here in college baseball. And there's too many opportunities where you could get like a plus 240, as in Iowa last weekend that we hit, and where the odds makers are just so wrong on a line. And I would have made Florida minus 185 to 200 in that range. And when it came out at 130, 140, that was just criminally underpriced for the Gators. I mean, it's
Now,
like free money.
My next question, Matt, was going to be, you talked about series prices. Now, we all know in the MLB, you can go there on the weekends and you can take a look and you can bet these games individually, or you can say, hey, you know what? I really like the matchup on Friday and Sunday. So let me play the series price, maybe sprinkle a little something on Friday's game. You win Friday's game, you could actually be sitting in the catbird seat on Saturday, where you could sprinkle a little something on the other side, knowing you're going to be a big favorite on Sunday. Do they allow you to do that in college baseball?
No, unfortunately not. But that's how I handicap these games. And that's why Friday nights are my favorite to bet, because going back to Iowa last week, they almost deterred me so much of betting the bet that I wanted to make on Saturday versus LSU. They were playing in a tournament. They get their butts handed to them Friday night by Sam Houston State. And me and Johnny were talking, maybe this Iowa team just doesn't have it offensively, but they were pitching a guy. He's a two-sport athlete, Brody Breck. He's also a wide receiver. He's got a weird, nasty pitch. And I just thought if LSU was going to drop a game this past weekend, it would be against him. And sure enough, they hung the line at plus 240. I really didn't have a lot of confidence in betting it, but I stuck to my guns and pulled the trigger. So going into like this weekend, I'm trying to bet a series price game by game. So if I think Florida is going to win this series 3-0 or 2-1, then I pinpoint my matchups with pitching. Which game is Florida most likely to drop? And at that point, kind of increase or decrease my line on these games to where I can try to find that happy medium where you can go 3 for 3 betting on, Florida to win Friday, Miami to win Saturday, Florida to win Sunday, and get some plus money throughout there. Because, I mean, let's be honest, you can't make a lot of money when you continuously lay high prices, minus 185, minus 200. Like we talked about Florida State, it's minus 205 right now. And, you bet that all week long and you win 2 of 3, you're not really making any money long term. So the real key is to figure out within the series which games are the favorites going to win, which one are they most likely to lose, and then that's when you bet the dog.
Hey Johnny, we talked about the books not getting caught up to the market. Generally, Thursday or Fridays, I have Dan Alexander on from Newbie Talks, from Wager Talk, and we do a lot of lacrosse, and they still not have caught up there. It's not something that most of the public wakes up and says, geez, I'm going to go bet a lacrosse game today, just like college baseball, and so I'm looking at, again, the odds here, some big money lines, some intriguing run lines. If you have an edge, Johnny, in a game, but you're not going to go to the window and lay the minus 490, minus 520, do you ever dabble into the run lines, minus 3.5, minus 4.5, or is that something that that's a little too much for me?
No, I definitely dabble. And what I like that they're doing this year, as opposed to at least earlier last year, was they weren't laying as many run lines. I didn't really start seeing run lines, and I can't speak for you guys, but for me at least, till later in the year, like late April, maybe into May, and then definitely during the tournament. So I will lay a run line. I typically, especially in college, I tend to try and not lay these run lines for the home teams. Typically in baseball, if you're laying the run line for the home team, you're missing the bottom of the ninth. That could be the difference between a win and a loss. I'll have to be really confident. Listen, sometimes I'll take a chance that I'm not 100% certain on, just to take a chance. Like today, perfect example is Florida laying the run line -1.5 for +110. I think they probably should win that game by 2, but in case I'm wrong and it's a slugfest and Miami ends up scoring more, I probably wouldn't do it. But I have to be really certain to lay that run line with a team at home. Like we were discussing it, maybe Tennessee today at +105, -3.5. Even that's a big number. Tennessee Volunteers are getting back into form. They got Maui Ahuna back. Griffin Merritt starting to get hot. Blake Burke is hitting the cover off the ball. Our boy Chase Dollander, who is the best pitching prospect in over 10 years in a generation. This doesn't come along very often. This is our guy. So I think in this case, maybe laying it with Tennessee, who's been putting it on teams, I would take a chance for that +105.
You're speaking my language here, and hats off to both of you here, because when we're breaking down MLB games, and I always throw this example out, Kershaw's at home -280 against the Marlins, and everyone's chomping at the bit to figure out, how am I going to get into this game? I'm not going to lay the 280, and they're scratching and pulling their hair, or for me, whatever hair I have left. And so the easy thing for them to do is say, geez, I'll take Kershaw and the Dodgers -1.5, and it's -105. But Johnny, you said the right thing, and hats off. The fact of the matter is, we're talking about odds here, and you've already taken the guaranteed 27 outs or swings down to 24 outs. Okay, so you're not guaranteed that ninth. And if you do get to the ninth, well, the only way you're covering a -1.5 is a 2-run homer, a 3-run homer, or a grand slam, because a walk-off double and a 4-3 win isn't paying the mortgage that day.
And that really stings when you win those. Like I had it didn't end up mattering. So I did a parlay a couple weeks ago just for fun, because it was a Thursday night, and it was Grand Canyon versus Ohio State. And Ohio State's actually an interesting team today against Mississippi State. So their Friday guy, Isaiah Coupet, who they threw on Thursday to start the series, which sometimes happens, Grand Canyon won 1-0. And I laid them 1.5 at home. So like, okay, Grand Canyon, it's Ohio State. You know, Ohio State isn't necessarily that good of a team, but they really hung tough with a really good Antelope program. And it was in part of a parlay, and it didn't hit. And it didn't matter because the other leg didn't hit either. But I would have been really mad if that was the reason why. And as opposed to laying whatever it was, -190, 195. I totally understand why people want to do that. But sometimes you have to really weigh, is the juice worth the squeeze, especially for the people that are putting it in a parlay.
Hey, Matty, I'm looking right now. CSU Bakerfield against Stanford. Stanford -550. You can grab CSU Bakerfield +400. But here's what intrigues me here. Over under is 11 and a hook, juiced -115, both sides. Yet Stanford -4.5 on the run line, +120 there, and -150 on the Bakerfield side. So basic math, just in my head, will tell me that this is probably a 7-3 game, something to that effect. When you're trying to figure out your price tag versus the over-under and the run line, are you basically saying, well, obviously I'm not taking Bakerfield plus the 400. It's kind of a pick 'em on the over-under 11. They're kind of telling me that they think Bakerfield's going to keep it within 4. Is that how you're reading that number?
Yeah, so many plays in college baseball have to be correlated, meaning like we'll find a path to how the line can be covered or how a team's going to win. So you take a team like Stanford, who is good. They're going to throw their ace, I would assume, Quinn Matthews tonight. And they're probably banking on Bakerfield not being able to keep up offensively. But, you know, this could be a 7-2, 7-3 type game where that 4.5 run line is in play, but the under is still alive. Where you could see some movement would be later when Matthews is out, or if he struggles early and they put in a good reliever. But typically, if you've got a team that threw their Friday night guy and they've got a good enough lead, they're not going to burn a bunch of arms. They don't really care to give up 2, 3, 4 runs when they've got a 7, 8 run lead in the 8th or 9th. There's no sense in pulling and wasting a pitcher on a Friday night when, they've got a heavy lead. So that's where you could see a lot of late overs come in on a Friday. I typically lean under on Fridays, but it's all contingent on how long will the starter go. If a starter comes out, throws 3 innings, gets shelled for 6 runs, well, the over is pretty much going to hit. But it's like Tanner Hall last week, with Southern Miss coming out. I mean, that's one of the best pitchers in college baseball, and he got shelled by an Illinois team that, really had no business of doing that to him. But, sometimes you get got and it happens. So I don't know. You would think correlation of 4.5 if Bakersfield is going to be able to do that and cover the 4.5, it's going to be an over. I just don't know if they're going to be able to score against Quinn. So we'll see. But I didn't play that one. Probably won't. But it's a good way of looking at it. Definitely.
I remember, I think it was Johnny's timeline last week watching that game, and I think I could hear him all the way on Cape Cod. He was going postal, and I was just like, I'm looking in. Oh, it was comical. I had a good howl on that one.
Yeah, it wasn't great for me because Tanner Hall he is one of the best pitchers in college baseball. He's not like these other guys where he's going to overpower you. He's got that low 90s stuff. He knows how to pitch. But the problem is when you take a Southern Miss, they're not an offensively driven team most of the time. So you have to make sure you're getting that 6 innings, 1 run, 2 runs. Their path to winning mostly is a close game. Like you cannot go out there when your star pitcher is giving up 5, 6 runs and expect to win. It's very difficult. They don't have the offense to sustain that. And, their pitching wasn't as good as it is last year. Like this year's is good, but it's not great. Last year they had Tanner Hall and Hurston Waldrop as their 1-2. That's a top 3 1-2 in the country. And, this year it's a lot different. So it's important to understand those kind of in and outs when it comes to certain teams.
People outside looking in, Johnny, you guys obviously know a lot of information. You follow this insiding out, you're reciting these lineups and, I probably should quiz you guys. You probably know where they went to high school and probably middle school too, but that will be for another show down the road. Where can some people that want to get into and more involved in the college baseball, any sites, any websites, or, people to follow other than you two, that they can start getting more information on the college side?
Well, I'll go first. So shout out to Joe Doyle, Prospects Live. So he's not a betting guy. That was actually who I had my podcast. We're talking about Wake Forest. And, I have to think that podcast had some contribution to why it got steamed. So he runs Prospects Live. Shout out Joe Doyle. He's fantastic. He's so knowledgeable. He, like I said, is not a bettor, but he runs college baseball and the prospects like how Mel Kiper would run NFL. So he does it. He is in love with the game. He knows every player. He knows way more than I do when it comes to players and teams. And it's a lot of these guys from obscure programs that you've never heard of. And I find myself learning certain guys to look out for when it comes to trying to get better senses of who to look out for. And you can look at his website, and obviously he does drafts, mock drafts, and he'll look at the best prospects for next year. I imagine Jack Caglione from Florida is going to be creeping up towards that board with Chase Burns and Vance Honeycutt from UNC. But that's definitely the guy I would follow. And D1 Baseball website, it's behind a paywall, but they have a lot of good stuff. if you want to get more information on college baseball, it's worth an investment because you're going to be able to make a lot of money because you're getting good information. And then most importantly, you have to watch the games. This is not something where you're going to be able to go on ESPN and look up these guys' stats and it's going to tell you the whole story. You have to know how a guy pitched. You have to look and see, was his stuff good? Was his good command? What was his breaking pitch like? Was he mixing in and out? And, did guys leave runners on base? Did it look like this team should have won, but they lost? Like, there's a lot that goes into it, unlike any other sport that I've watched.
Matt?
Yeah, definitely D1 baseball. That's my favorite tab on my internet. And Kendall Rogers, what he puts out, you can get the back end stats of each game. What he's done for just the game of college baseball in general is phenomenal. Dimitri and Ben Upton over at 11.7. They've also done a really good job at growing the game. They've recently gotten more into the sports betting spectrum also, and I like to give a shout out to Ben because he's been killing it this year. But we are opposites on Florida and Miami today, so let's go Gators. But outside of that, yeah, like Johnny said, you've got to watch these games, and it's not like a stat line where you can get the advanced metrics of everything, that you can in MLB. It's just really the eyeball test, trying to know who's pitching. It is a race for information. You've got to beat these odds makers to find out who's starting, who's in or out of the lineup. I mean, these things change so frequently. You're talking about teams that play 4 or 5 games a week, and you just never know who's pitching, who's playing first, who's moving to third. And just the more information you can get on the front end is going to help you long term. So I just try to put everything together and make as much money as I can, given the small scale that we're given.
And I'll say this just to add on real quick. Sorry to jump in. The best way to start is watching the SEC teams. The SEC teams are the best because primarily those are the best teams in the country outside of a couple like Wake Forest, Stanford, that kind of thing. So then you kind of build out. I would suggest definitely anybody new looking to get into it, start watching the SEC, then start branching out to the other conferences. So by watching it, you get a sense of who pitches. So sometimes you have to use context clues. Like, let's say you don't definitely know who's going on a Saturday. Maybe you look at who pitched last Saturday, and then it kind of gives you an idea. Like, for instance, though, the SEC teams, you pretty much know who's going. Tennessee has a set rotation. They go Dollander on Friday, Burns on Saturday, Beams on Sunday. Beams the best Sunday guy in baseball. Florida goes Brandon Sproat Friday, Hurston Waldrip Saturday, Jack Caglione Sunday. LSU right now goes Paul Skeens Friday, Riley Cooper Saturday, freshman Chase Shore Sunday. So that's really how you start getting into the routine. And for the most part, it doesn't change. Sometimes you throw a wrinkle in when you start a series on a Thursday where managers don't want to start their Friday guy a day early. They want to give him the same rest. But typically that's how you go about it.
Shout out to Sean Alvarez, Mr. Smooth. He says, let's cash some winners today, fellas. I'm going to ask both of you guys, and if you don't have the answer, it's okay. Good friend, colleague, Ian Ritchie, son got drafted last year, lefty pitcher from UCLA. I think he got drafted late first round, early second from, I think it was the Braves. Now go back to your memory banks last year. Did you guys ever see the kid pitch at all?
I don't think I did.
I haven't seen him pitch, but I heard that name. Somebody else, another guy, a guy I worked with, I believe.
Sean Alvarez just said J.R. Ritchie.
Yeah, he's friend with the father, and that's the second time I heard of it. So he was 2021, so that would make sense. Yeah, I've heard that name before, and I've heard he's a really good prospect. I mean, he's on Perfect Game. He's very high. He's 22nd overall prospect on Perfect Game, 4th right-handed pitcher. So definitely somebody that I'll have my eye on coming up, and looking forward to watching.
All right, before we wrap up here, I'm going to go to the futures page. We started with that, but Johnny, while you're still up here, you talked obviously about Florida. Both you guys did. Give us, I like to call it a beer and pizza, a little something, something sprinkle on a potential dog of the day / maybe or of the weekend that you're eyeing.
For futures or just you said
This
futures?
weekend. No, this weekend.
Okay, this weekend, underdog.
Yeah.
So for the day, my favorite dog is probably Maryland. I got them at 170. It's down now down to 145. We had this same matchup last Friday. It should be Jason Savacool for Maryland, who I have as a top 15 pitcher in the country, against Jack Doherty for Ole Miss, who got lit up last time, and he's not a Friday guy. The only reason he's starting today and he started last Friday is because their ace, Ole Miss's, Hunter Elliott, he's still getting his arm examined, possibly for Tommy John. So I would think that the Terps, who have a really good offense, who could score runs, is a good upset again, like we hit last week. The only problem that they have is their bullpen is an absolute disaster. It's 100 times worse than what the Phillies had a couple years ago. But their path to winning with Savacool, if he can go 6 or 7 innings, allow 3 runs or less, they're capable of putting up 8 to 10 runs on this Ole Miss team.
Matt, any dogs stand out to you?
That is my favorite dog also. I do like Michigan a little bit at plus 150. It's not as juicy, but I will give you one that I'm leaning towards. Cal State Fullerton plus 270 over Texas. And as we touched on earlier, for whatever reason, Texas just doesn't have it. They're going to play a Cal State team who beat Stanford in their Friday night matchup 2 weekends ago. They won 8-1. So I think Cal State may have the firepower to hit Pete Hansen if he can get out of there early. I really like their odds. I'm sorry, not Pete Hansen. That's last year. Lucas Gordon. I knew that didn't sound right. But if Cal State can get after Gordon early, I think a plus 270 dog, that's pretty juicy coming down the stretch.
All right, as we're wrapping up here, I pulled up the futures board on DraftKings. Shout out to DraftKings on next Friday, 10 a.m. 7 mobile apps will be launching here in Massachusetts. And, of course, they will be one of them. They'll be the headliner as their corporate office is just an hour away. Shout out to Julian Edlow as well, who comes here on Tuesdays. Gentlemen, I'm going to read probably a dozen deep on the futures board. And when I pull you up, you can go deeper if you want, but Tennessee plus 650, LSU plus 700, Stanford plus 1,000. Stanford is the team that knocked out UConn last year. Ole Miss, defending champs, plus 1,200. Vanderbilt plus 1,500. The Gators plus 1,500. Wake Forest plus 1,800. Arkansas plus 2,000. A&M plus 2,500. Okie State plus 3,000, Carolina plus 3,000, Florida State plus 3,500, Texas Tech 4,000, Texas 4,000, UCLA 5,000, Louisville 4,000, Oregon State 4,000, Virginia 4,000. Matt, start us off.
Florida plus 1,500, Wake Forest plus 1,800. I think you're in that ballpark right there. May even take a little nibble at Florida State plus 3,500, but I would love to see how they do against this this weekend in their series. But yeah, I think Wake and Florida right now are two of the hottest teams in baseball, and I like the price on them. You can still get.
I would tend to agree. Those are probably the best numbers you're going to get for the rest of the way. Wake Forest has come down pretty dramatically. I gave them out at 25-1. That's where I took them at, and they've come down pretty hard. Wake Forest hasn't really been bettable the last couple of weeks because they are like minus 1,000 favorites against these no-name schools. Florida 15-1 right now is a good price. That's something that would be a 2-unit hit for me. I already have Tennessee 8-1 on my board. And then none of these teams from 20-1 to 50-1 make any sense to me. Florida State, I don't think they're ready yet. I think Florida State will come next year. That's when I'm looking at them. None of these other teams draw up for me. Then I have to go further down the board here. Mississippi State already took out 60-1. There's 25-1 to Mississippi State in other books, which is weird. We discussed South Carolina earlier, 100-1. They're down 75-1. Still think that's okay. Grand Canyon, 75-1. I like a little sprinkle on. I think you could create some equity out of that ticket. And then if we're going to do a super, super deep dive, I would look at, if they're still here, the Campbell Camels at 30-1, 300-1. So the Campbell Camels are the best team in America that nobody talks about. If they did not get put in Tennessee's region last year, they would have at least made the Super Regionals. They had 2 guys taken in the first round, Thomas Harrington and Zach Nito, who went 13th overall, I think, to the Angels at shortstop. They now have a first-rounder this year, most likely, by the name of Cade Cooler, who pitched on Team USA. Still has some things to work out, but he's still pretty good. And they have an offense that could rake. Most of the offense that hit 118 home runs last year, which was top 5, is still intact. So Campbell at 300-1 is a team I would look at for maybe even something like $10, because if they get the right draw, they could actually make a lot of noise and make teams uncomfortable.
The crawler's been going the whole time, guys. And listen, this is the first time we put together a 3-man booth that I've been in charge. Myself, Brady Tinker, and Dave Sharapan did a lot of 3-man booths during the fall and early winter. So, first of all, amazing job. You guys' knowledge is second to none here. First and foremost, Johnny, the crawler's been going. Everyone can follow you at _ Johnny VTV. Tell them where they can find all your work, Johnny.
Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter at _ Johnny VTV, Instagram, Johnny VTV _, and TikTok, just Johnny VTV. But all my written content will be on betkarma.com. That's where I'm putting out all my stuff. Make sure you check it out and read. We have a long season, and we have a lot of money to make in college baseball, and then MLB right around the corner.
Maddie, at Grissom Tweets, where else can they find your work?
MattGrissom.com, and I'm working on getting Matt Grissom Twitter. It's some guy, I don't think he's ever checked it. It's unfortunate, but I put out all my content for free, all my plays. I don't run a tout service. I couldn't sleep at night knowing I charge people to lose them money. So I try to pick winners. They're all free. I don't put out anything that I don't bet myself. Just try to be authentic, man, and just be an honest handicapper. There's too many people out there trying to scam people. Don't pay for picks. There's no such thing as a perfect record. There's not even a 70% record. You know, we're just trying to be up units by the end of the year and have some fun doing it.
I can't thank these two gentlemen enough. It was an amazing debut, and 100%, to be honest, I've never been nervous. We have over 900 shows on our YouTube channel. Not one has ever been scripted, and it will never be scripted. So I enjoy this back and forth serve and volley, throw you a soft curveball, and you can knock it out of the park, or you can foul it off, and in comes the chin cheese. So look forward to many, many, many more shows. I wish you guys the best this weekend. Go follow Matt at Grissom Tweets. Go follow Johnny VTV at _ Johnny VTV. And for everyone still following us here, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe at our YouTube channel at East Coast Sports Investors. It's free. And everyone else retweet. We will be back in about a half hour with Steven Nover. He will be making his debut from Las Vegas. And then at 4:30, myself and Riley will get everyone caught up to speed in today's sports market in the closing bell. Again, from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Matt Grissom at Grissom Tweets, and Johnny VTV at _ Johnny VTV. We wish everyone a blessed day. Best of luck in your college baseball picks today, this weekend, your futures, and we'll catch you guys soon.
Thank you, Jeff, for having us on.
Thank you.